Marco, when we talk about the fierce urgency, you know, whether it's the 300 million people who live around the base of the Himalayas, for whom water scarcity will mean that not only when they migrate to the cities, which don't have the infrastructure to provide an additional water carrying capacity for those 300 million people, it's clear that incrementalism isn't really going to get us there. That we need to find a way of moving faster in response to the challenges that we face. As a lawyer, you know, this has been a really interesting week in the environmental movement. You've seen Greenpeace, for example, in the Philippines, filing a lawsuit, the first ever human rights complaint against big polluters. 50 of the world's largest multinational companies that are emitting greenhouse gas emissions. As you look at those kinds of approaches, what conclusions do you draw, and what, from your perspective, is the strategic opportunity to think in a different way about the tactics that we need to use, the pace at which we need to move at, in order to really usher in this new economic transition in the time that we have, but in a way that also respects the rights and the dignity of ordinary people?
Sure, thank you. At Earthrights International, we work to protect the environment and human rights of vulnerable communities around the world using legal and advocacy strategies. And we believe that an essential element of justice, including climate justice, is accountability. I think I heard the phrase "hold them accountable" in the performance earlier tonight. I was pleased to hear that. But right now, communities all over the world are suffering harms from climate change, all out of proportion to their role in creating the problem. But those who have contributed most to the problem and who have profited from their behavior, and who even now continue to sow misinformation about climate change, have not been held accountable for their actions. One response to this has been the divestment campaign that has now pulled over $2.6 trillion in assets away from fossil fuel companies. And this has helped to stigmatize the industry and raise awareness about climate harms. And as John said, that's not a marketing effort. Another response, however, we believe should be tort law. And the basic purpose of tort law is the allocation or reallocation of losses, starting from the premise that those who have caused and profited harms should bear greater responsibility for paying for those harms than the communities who suffer from those harms. And now, with the path-breaking work of the Carbon Majors Project, and this graphic comes from the Carbon Majors Project, we now have a pretty good idea of exactly which companies have contributed the most to and profited the most from climate change. Don't worry, neither General Mills nor Unilever is up there, so you can breathe easy. Marcella mentioned the typhoon in the Philippines, and Rajiv mentioned that just yesterday, this complaint was filed in the Philippines Human Rights Commission, which calls upon the commission to investigate, quote, whether the investor-owned carbon majors have breached their responsibilities to respect the rights of the Filipino people. And Earthrights International is an advisor on this petition, which is led by Greenpeace Southeast Asia. Part of the reason that we have traveled so far into this climate crisis is that everyone assumed all along that they would never be held accountable for it. Proving that assumption wrong, in our view, is not only critical for the communities around the world who face mounting costs due to climate change, but it would also lead to drastic changes in behavior almost overnight. And so that's what we're working to effect.
Thank you very much.